After rebirth, my sister wants to marry the village troublemaker. In my past life, my sister married the rough butcher, while I married the village troublemaker. Later, the troublemaker made a fortune, bought several buildings in the city, and let me spend his money freely. But my sister disliked the smell of pigs on the butcher, refused to share a room with him, and ended up fooling around with the village playboy. I went to persuade my sister to live a good life with the butcher. As my mother had asked, seeing me covered in jewels, my sister turned red with envy. While I was fetching water, she struck the back of my head with a hammer. When I opened my eyes, we had both returned to the day the matchmaker came to propose the marriage. My sister grabbed the matchmaker's hand before I could, shouting that she wanted to marry the village troublemaker. The whole family was shocked. The matchmaker gasped in surprise, while I alone managed to suppress my laughter. Bo Lee wasn't a late bloomer, nor was he a prodigal son who had turned over a new leaf. It was just that all that money had been earned by me. But does my sister really have the guts to keep the troublemaking Bo Lee in check? Mother, I refuse to marry Fin Fong. If I'm to marry anyone, it'll be Bo Lee. Although he enjoys peeping at the wives while they use the outhouse, let's be honest, aren't the women being peeped at also at fault? After my sister passionately uttered these words, everyone present looked shocked, and the matchmaker even gasped in disbelief. Only I remained calm, taking a sip of water, because I knew my sister had also been reborn. In my past life, my mother favored my sister and wanted her to marry the wealthiest and most capable butcher in the village. She casually pushed me onto Bo Lee, using the bride price he gave our family to pad my sister's dowry instead. All I got for my dowry were a few tattered quilts. She comforted me by saying, "I was afraid your sister might suffer after marriage, so the family had to do our part. Just look at that Bo Lee. He's clearly the type who dotes on his wife, not like your sister. Marrying him would mean a life of comfort for you." When mother heard that my sister was to marry Bo Lee, she slapped her thigh in fury. "Did you stuff yourself stupid last night? Have you forgotten that Bo Lee once groped your great-aunt's backside?" My sister laughed like a fool and dragged mother into the main hall. From a distance, the two were whispering intimately to each other. No one knew what was said, but mother first reacted with shock, then confusion, and finally calm acceptance. Amid her half-doubt, the two marriage arrangements were settled. At night, as the crows on the old locust tree fell asleep, mother's room remained brightly lit. I pushed the door open with a creak, and mother turned her head from the kang. When she saw it was me, the loving smile on her face vanished, and she turned her head away again. I urged her to rest early, but mother said, "I can't stop worrying about your sister. While I'm still able, I want to make a few more wedding quilts for her. Your sister isn't like you. To give you a better life, she married Bo Lee. Remember to help your sister's family more in the future. If she's doing well, you'll be doing well too." I glanced at the red cotton quilt embroidered with dragons and phoenixes on the bed and casually asked, "Mom, what about mine?" Her needle-pushing hand paused slightly, her tone somewhat odd. "You're about to marry the wealthiest butcher in the village, yet you still keep trying to exploit my old bones. Even the old landlord wasn't as scheming as you." After hearing these words, I turned and left, closing the door behind me. I didn't tell her it would rain tonight, letting her leave the cotton drying outside. The next day, I was startled awake by crying in the yard. I heard my mother wailing, "Oh heavens, why are you so blind? My own daughter is about to get married, and this cotton is damp and moldy. What am I supposed to do now?" I hid under the covers, quietly laughing to myself. Such an unlucky marriage paired with moldy quilts. What a perfect match for my sister. Annoyed by the noise, my sister threw off the quilt covering her, casually draped a jacket over herself, yanked the door open, and snapped at mother in irritation. "Enough already. These shabby quilts aren't even worth showing off. If you really cared, you'd get me a pair of gold bracelets as dowry instead." The mother's crying stopped abruptly, not saddened by her daughter's words. Instead, it cleared the blockage in her brain, and she raised her hand to slap herself. How could I not have thought of that? My daughter is so clever. That Fin Fong boy gave our family 3,000 yuan as a betrothal gift yesterday, enough to buy a pair of 40-gram gold bracelets. I clenched my fists under the covers. "So you take my dowry money, throw me a few ragged quilts, and buy a gold bracelet for my sister Lily Lee, is that it?" My sister finished dressing, glanced back at me pretending to sleep, and leaned against the door with a sneer. Sleeping like a dead pig. No wonder you're marrying a butcher who reeks of pigs. You two are a perfect match, not like me. I'm going to marry the future richest man, Myra Lee. You're only fit to shovel pig feed with the butcher. Envious of my gold and silver adornments, after tossing out these words, she swayed her slender waist and went off to cultivate feelings with Bo Lee. My previously foul mood dissipated like smoke with her words. If I recall correctly, Bo Lee is currently lying in Widow Jong's bed. However, my sister was so eager to marry him. This minor issue could be overlooked with a little tolerance. After all, even more critical matters were lurking ahead, waiting for her to uncover. A month later, the entire village gathered at my home for the wedding feast. My sister suggested we hold the celebration together to make the family's joy more apparent. Actually, I knew Bo Lee couldn't afford the banquet, and my sister, desperate to win his heart, shamelessly proposed the idea of combining our events. I laughed. Everyone knows Fin Fong is the wealthiest in the entire village. No, in the whole town, no one can match his fortune. The Fong family's backyard is home to over a dozen black pigs, each plump and robust, with big city businessmen making special trips to the countryside to purchase them at premium prices. At a time when every household could only hope to eat meat during festivals and holidays, the Fong family had long achieved the blissful life of having meat in every meal. In my past life, after finishing the back-breaking farm work and dragging my starving body, when I caught the scent of pork wafting from the Fong family's home, how I envied my sister for marrying Fin Fong, not having to toil in the fields and enjoying meat with every meal. Occasionally, Fin Fong would give me a few ribs. Blushing, I tried to decline repeatedly but eventually had no choice but to accept them reluctantly. While exchanging the pork, my hand brushed against the calloused palm of the man, its scorching warmth searing straight to my heart. The spring breeze carried his pheromones, leaving me dizzy and weak in the knees. I suddenly remembered the village women gossiping at the village entrance. They talked about Fin Fong's well-defined muscles under his thin shirt and the slight bulge in his shorts, saying they'd never seen anyone in the village as robust and imposing as him. Yet Fin Fong had strikingly handsome and symmetrical features. Even by the standards of 20 years later, when slimness was considered the ideal, he would still stand out as exceptionally attractive. I envy my sister for not knowing what's good for her. Yet I'm also glad she mistook a fisheye for a pearl and didn't get involved with such a person. This lifetime, it's my turn to enjoy such good fortune. Firecrackers had been crackling outside all day. The air thick with the pungent smell of gunpowder. Children gathered at the door with giggles, peeking in to steal glances at me. When I caught him, his face turned red with surprise, and he exclaimed, "The bride is so beautiful, her skin is so fair, even fairer than the snow from earlier this year." My sister-in-law pulled a handful of wedding candies from her pocket and handed them out, telling the kids to go play somewhere else. She entered the room, set down the rosewood tray in her hands, and picked out a piece of pastry she knew I liked, handing it to me. I devoured it ravenously and was astonished to find that this pastry was many times more delicious than any I'd had before. My sister-in-law touched my wedding dress enviously. "No wonder this dress costs 10,000 yuan. Look at these patterns. Look at this tailoring. It's definitely worth every penny." Hearing the price of 10,000 yuan, I nearly choked. My sister-in-law quickly brought me some tea to help me recover. Looking down at the crumbs all over my dress, my heart ached with regret. "This wedding dress is so expensive, and I got it dirty. Your brother won't be mad, will he?" My sister-in-law was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. "That idiot brother of mine would be overjoyed. How could he blame you, sister-in-law?" Suddenly, I remembered that in my past life, when my sister Lily Lee got married, she wore the same as me, a borrowed red wedding dress from a married woman in the village. Which one to wear through the exquisitely tailored white wedding dress? My sister-in-law said to me, "When the matchmaker came to your house to propose, my brother had already asked me to find out your clothing measurements and had someone order it in the city for you." I was startled and didn't know what to say. 1,000 questions condensed in my heart, and my gaze unconsciously shifted to this pastry. My sister-in-law winked at me mischievously. "And these pastries? My brother knew you loved them, so he bought them from the city early this morning." I parted my rosy lips slightly, my eyes shimmering with emotion, eager to see my groom at once. Could it be that in his past life, he repeatedly showed me kindness, whether it was giving me pork or, upon hearing I wanted to start a business in the city, sending me a large sum of money to show his support? At that time, I thought it was because he loved my sister, and by extension, he loved me too. Turns out it had nothing to do with my sister. He had been loving me all along. Lily Lee had a stunning figure, making the long outdated red wedding dress look as radiant as peach blossoms on her. From the moment she appeared before Bo Lee, his gaze never left her. Lily Lee slightly raised her chin, like a charming magpie. The surrounding villagers kept congratulating Bo Lee on winning the beauty's hand, and in her 18 years of life, she had never heard as many compliments as she did at that moment. It practically lifted her to the heavens. The only pity was that all those compliments shifted to me the moment I walked out the door. In the 1990s, the villagers had never seen the wider world, only catching glimpses of it through films shown during mobile cinema screenings in the countryside. The newlywed brides were utterly envious. "Lily, is that a wedding dress you're wearing? Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful." That Fin Fong really knows how to pamper his wife, willing to rent such an expensive wedding dress. Lily Lee stood opposite, grinding her teeth so hard they might shatter. She remembered wearing a red wedding dress in her past life too. How dare Myra Lee get to wear a white wedding gown? As if she even deserves it. Myra Lee, you'd better take good care of it. If it gets damaged, Fin Fong might get so angry he'll call off the engagement. Hearing her envious remark, someone couldn't resist mocking. Then why didn't your Bo Lee rent you a wedding dress? Couldn't afford it? Or did he spend all the money compensating the bride whose backside was exposed? You, Lily Lee's face turned red with anger. I covered my lips with a smile, feeling cheerful and light-hearted inside. Lily Lee gritted her back teeth so hard they nearly shattered. What are you laughing at? If I hadn't rejected this marriage, would it ever have been your turn, sister-in-law, who said I was going to marry you? Just as I was about to snap back at Lily Lee, a deep, pleasant male voice came from behind me. It was Fin Fong. The moment I turned around, I was instantly stunned. Fin Fong was dressed in a white suit that matched mine, making him look like a dashing gentleman from a movie. The gazes of the young wives around us lingered on him, quietly marveling at how they hadn't been blessed with such good fortune. He gently raised his hand to rest on my shoulder, standing by my side opposite Lily Lee. "Hurry up and tell me that person's name. I'll send someone to slap his mouth. How could he pass up a pearl like you? People will think I'm a fool otherwise. And besides, my family isn't so poor that we need to rent a wedding dress. This wedding dress was bought by me. Even if Myra Lee wants to burn it for firewood, I'd be happy to let her." Hearing that the wedding dress was purchased, everyone present looked at me with eyes full of envy and jealousy. How lucky Myra Lee is to marry into a wealthy family like Fin Fong's. From now on, not only will she eat meat at every meal, but even the dog she keeps for fun will eat better than Lily Lee's whole family. Lily Lee was so angry she could practically feel her lungs exploding, pretending to cover her nose. She said with disdain, "I never said I wanted to marry you. Who would like a stinky man reeking of pigs?" I tilted my head and sniffed, only catching the faint, refreshing scent of soap. My sister-in-law even jumped in to slap her in the face, metaphorically. "Stop talking nonsense. My brother has hired someone to take care of the pigs for days just to marry my sister-in-law. He's even afraid of smelling like pigs. He's used up 3 bars of soap washing himself, terrified my sister-in-law might dislike him." Lily Lee's face turned red, then yellow, then black, and finally white. This can't be possible." I gave her a provocative smile. "Perhaps it's a matter of who marries whom. A worthy person makes you fear you can't do enough for them. An unworthy one doesn't even deserve to be cherished." Lily Lee was so furious she nearly fainted. I linked arms with Fin Fong and accompanied him to toast the villagers. Finally, he glanced at Lily Lee, who was gulping down water from her cup, thinking to himself, "This is just the beginning. The real show is yet to come." Halfway through the banquet, everyone was thoroughly satisfied. Every dish contains meat, each prepared in its own way. Braised, steamed, stewed, or stir-fried, each has its own distinct flavor, sweet, sour, spicy, or salty. The extravagance left me utterly stunned. I was afraid Fin Fong would empty out his entire fortune. His face flushed from drinking. He gazed at me with tender, affectionate eyes. "As long as you're happy." Everything is worth it, I giggled coyly. Oh, so only I'm happy. You're not happy at all. He paused, then laughed again. No, I'm the happiest person. Just as I sat down with him, my mother's fiery scolding echoed from the doorway. My heart leaped with joy as I looked up. It was Widow Jong, Bo Lee's lover. She had arrived. Do it over, and I'll still be the winner. Widow Jong gazed at Bo Lee with tearful eyes, shattering the man's heart into pieces. She clutched her belly and knelt before her sister. I don't want to make things ugly for Brother Bo either, but I can endure it. Her voice was quite loud, as if afraid that everyone present wouldn't hear. But the baby in my belly can't wait any longer. The child in her belly had also arrived. Lily Lee pointed at Widow Jong and fainted from anger into my mother's arms. This embarrassing incident quickly spread like wildfire. Within a month, even people from other villages had heard about the groom who got a widow pregnant and caused a huge scene at the wedding. Fearing the situation would escalate further, my mother secretly gave the gold bracelet originally bought for Lily Lee to Widow Jong. She told her to go to a hospital in the city and abort the child in her belly. After waking up, Lily Lee heard about the matter and seemed lost in thought. Not only did she not argue with her mother, but she also didn't confront Bo Lee to demand an explanation. Instead, like a dutiful and obedient wife, she cooked meals at home and waited quietly for Bo Lee to return for dinner. After the meal, she shouldered the hoe and went back to work in the fields. The passing aunties all found it strange. This Lily Lee must have been traumatized and lost her mind. Back when she was a maiden in her own home, she wouldn't even lift a finger to wipe the table, always made Myra Lee do it. And now, not only did she willingly marry someone like Bo Lee, but she's also content being a servant to others. Stop talking. Lily Lee is just plain crazy. All she ever talks about is how Bo Lee is going to make a fortune. She's got her nose in the air and looks down on the rest of us. Lily Lee overheard their gossip behind her back but didn't get angry. She even lifted her chin, like a proud goose with its head held high. A few days later, I heard that Lily Lee was going around borrowing money from people to fund Bo Lee's business venture in the city. Some refused to lend her money and didn't even bother with polite pretenses, mocking Lily Lee instead. Lily Lee crossed her arms and sneered, "What do you know? My Bo is destined for great things. If you help our family out, we'll remember your kindness. But if you don't blame me for turning a cold shoulder when you come to borrow money from our Bo in the future." Aunt Lee spat in her face, cursing her for bringing bad luck. What great things could your Bo Lee possibly achieve? Don't end up getting arrested in the city. Your eyes are covered in shit, and it seems to have infected your brain too. Get out of here right now. Don't you dare corrupt my child. With that, she picked up the basin of foot-washing water and splashed it all over Lily Lee. Not only did Lily Lee fail to borrow any money, but she also ended up drenched like a drowned rat. She returned home in a daze, muttering the same phrase over and over again. "A virtuous wife accompanies my lofty aspirations. I promise her 10,000 taels of gold, as long as I endure these hardships. In the future, all the money Bo Lee earns will be under my control." Early the next morning, when my sister-in-law Feng Jiaojiao opened the door, she saw my mother and Lily Lee standing outside. "What are you here for?" Lily Lee ignored Feng Jiaojiao and directly pulled her mother into my room. Feng Jiaojiao didn't stop them. Lily Lee had already lifted the curtain in the room. Still shaken, I pulled the blanket up to cover my chest and glared at her angrily. "Why aren't you staying at your own home early in the morning? What are you doing in my house? Did Widow Jong take over your bed, and you're holding a grudge? So you came looking for me?" Lily Lee's expression froze. "What nonsense are you talking about? That bitch ran off with some other man long ago. Bo Lee was corrupted by her." I couldn't help but find it both amusing and absurd. A beast like Bo Lee doesn't need anyone to corrupt him further. Lily Lee glanced around the room and, noticing Fin Feng's absence, looked at me with a hint of pity in her eyes. "Sigh. No wonder you're stuck with a man who reeks of pig stench. If I were married to Fin Feng, I wouldn't even let him sleep in the bed." My mother sat by the bed, holding my hand. "Your sister came today to help you. She knows you haven't been happy since marrying Fin Feng and wants to arrange a better match for you." Their tag team performance left me utterly confused. My life is perfectly fine. What exactly do I need help with? On the night of the wedding, Fin Feng turned off the light and, under the bright moonlight from the window, removed the heavy wedding dress. Amid their heavy breathing, they felt a warm flow beneath them. My face darkened, and I quickly pushed Fin Feng away. Fin Feng mistakenly thought he had frightened me. "I'm sorry, I don't have any experience. Did I hurt you?" My face turned red. "What should I do? I think my period just started." Now, it was Fin Feng's turn to blush. On our first night of marriage, Fin Feng and I fell asleep in each other's arms. But neither of them slept well. Fin Feng, with a soft fragrance in his arms, couldn't remain as composed as Liu Xiaohui, who stayed unmoved with a woman in his lap. As he held me tightly in his arms, I felt a hardness unlike a woman's, making me uncomfortable all over. The next day, Fin Feng noticed the dark circles under my eyes and voluntarily took his quilt to sleep in the main room. I gazed at the courtyard adorned with lanterns and colorful decorations, letting out a helpless sigh. It seems I'll have to wait a while longer before I can taste Fin Feng. I sneered at Lily Li. "You should first keep Bo Li's pants fastened before worrying about me. Everyone in the village knows how loose Bo Li's pants are. Sometimes, they don't even need someone to pull them down. A gust of wind is enough to make them drop." Lily Li was about to scold me but then remembered she had come to ask for my help. She swallowed her anger and forced a look of sisterly affection. "You're my own sister. How could I ever harm you? Poor thing. After you marry Fin Feng, you'll have to endure the stench of pigs every day." I got dressed under the covers and threw off the blanket covering me. Lily Li and her mother finally noticed the silk pajamas I was wearing, the same ones from the movie. This scene left the two of them utterly envious. Lily Li couldn't resist running her hands over the fabric. "Are these really the same clothes from the movie?" I nodded. "Expensive clothes have their reasons. They feel like you're wearing nothing at all." My mother let out a gasp of surprise, and following the sound, I saw her holding a pack of sanitary pads in her hand. "What is this thing? I've never seen it before." Lily Li was also someone who had been reborn in this life. Naturally, she knew what that thing was. A sanitary pad. In the early 1990s, no one in the rural areas could afford sanitary pads. They all used menstrual belts stuffed with cotton or plant ash. Lily Li began to mutter to herself. In her previous life, when she married Fin Feng, why didn't she get the privilege of wearing a wedding dress or using sanitary pads? Her period started around the same time as mine, and now, feeling the discomfort brought by the menstrual belt, she kept silently hypnotizing herself in her mind. As long as she sticks with Bo Li to get rich, she can live a life of luxury just like I did in my past life. But she never expected that I would live even more comfortably than her, while she has to deal with all the mess Bo Li brings. Lily Li clenched her teeth, nails digging into her palms as if she couldn't feel the pain, dragging her mother away in a panic. "She has some brains, just not many." Before leaving, she even took that pack of sanitary pads with her. Just as she stepped out the door, she saw Fin Feng coming out of the kitchen. He was wearing a white shirt and black suit pants, looking neat and sharp. Lily Li was lost in thought, as if reminiscing about the time in her past life when she married Fin Feng. Before dawn even broke, Fin Feng was nowhere to be seen. As night fell, he emerged unkempt from the pig pen. Lily Li caught a whiff of the stench of pigs on him, and even the fragrant braised ribs in her bowl lost their appeal. When she snapped out of her reverie and looked around the neatly tidied courtyard, she caught sight of one or two rose bushes planted beside the house. Lily Li's gaze at Fin Feng was filled with both resentment and reproach. She blamed him for not providing her with such a good life. If he had been like this from the start, why would she have ended up mingling with the village rogue? Don't blame her for the affair. Fin Feng brought it upon himself. Fin Feng's smile faded significantly upon seeing Lily Li and my mother. After getting married, Fin Feng listened to his sister and delegated all the pig farming tasks to hired workers. He devoted all his attention to his wife. Fearing that his long-cherished darling might be blown away by a gust of wind, he would get up several times at night, sneaking into the main room just to gaze at his wife's sleeping face for a while. Only then did he return to sleep. Fully satisfied, Fin Feng loved the crow for the sake of the nest. Extending his courtesy to his wife's family members, he politely asked, "Why not stay for a meal before you leave?" My mother caught a whiff of the rich, mouth-watering aroma of meat wafting through the air. The last time we had meat was at the wedding banquet, and she immediately found herself unable to walk away. Great, I've never had a meal cooked by my son-in-law before, seeing that she couldn't persuade my mother to leave. Lily Lee had no choice but to reluctantly stay for dinner. By then, Feng Jiaojiao had finished sweeping the fallen leaves in the yard, washed her hands, and went to serve the soft and sweet potato and corn porridge. Fin Feng brought the freshly braised pork ribs and stir-fried pork with garlic shoots to the table. The scent was strong enough to wake the old yellow dog next door. Lily Lee patted her empty stomach. Ever since marrying Bo Lee, she could only enjoy a warm breakfast at her parents' home. She gulped down 2 bowls of porridge in one go, filling her belly until it was as round as a balloon, before reluctantly putting down the bowl. At this moment, Fin Feng was peeling shrimp for me. Lily Lee was stunned. Where did you get the shrimp? Feng Jiaojiao still remembered how this woman had mocked her brother for smelling bad, so she said sarcastically, I already told you, my sister-in-law married into our family to enjoy a life of comfort. See, when my sister-in-law wasn't feeling well, my brother specially went to the city to buy 2 pounds of shrimp and kept them in the sink. Whenever she wants to eat, he just scoops them out. When my mother heard about my heavenly life, she tugged at Lily Lee's sleeve and whispered with a sigh, it seems Myra Lee won't listen to us and has fallen out with Fin Feng. I popped the peeled shrimp into my mouth and chewed, shooting Lily Lee a sidelong glance, wondering what was on her mind, probably thinking about where her future billionaire husband had gone to flirt around again. As we were leaving, Lily Lee couldn't resist a final jab, sneering at me. Don't think you've married better than me, just wait a few more years. Bo Lee is bound to make a fortune, and then I'll be the wife of a billionaire, while you'll still be married to a pig farmer. My mother also joined my sister in brainwashing me. You're blood sisters, if your brother-in-law does well, you'll do well too. Give your sister 30,000 yuan so your brother-in-law can start a business in the city, if he makes money. Your brother-in-law will surely remember your kindness. I crossed my arms and rolled my eyes. Forget it, someone as capable as my brother-in-law definitely wouldn't be short of a pig farmer's money. I saw my sister open her mouth to speak, so I kicked the door shut. A few days later, holding a bowl of fragrant roasted sunflower seeds, I sat by the roadside listening to the aunties' gossip. Myra, your brother-in-law went to the city to do business. Why didn't you ask Fin Feng to go with him? Aunt Lee grabbed a handful of seeds from my basket. Facing the teasing gazes of others, I kept my expression indifferent. Didn't my sister say that my brother-in-law was born to be a businessman? Our little mountain village can't hold such a big Buddha. But since Fin Feng and I just got married, we won't join in the excitement, Aunt Bai chimed in. Exactly. That boy Fin Feng raised his younger sister all by himself. He's a fine young man. Even if Fin Feng doesn't go to the city to do business, he can still live a thriving life in the village. Not long after, I saw my sister walking down the road, carrying a hoe over her shoulder. Aunt Lee shouted at her, Lily Lee, why didn't you go to the city with your husband to do business? Lily Lee wiped the sweat from her forehead and squinted her eyes, which were stinging from the sun. Business is a man's job. I'll just stay home and take care of things for him. After not seeing her for just a few days, I was startled by Lily Lee's appearance. Lily Lee's fair skin had been darkened and roughened by the sun, making her look several years older, with dry, cracked wrinkles creeping at the corners of her eyes. Lily Lee's gaze met mine, and she reverted to her usual haughty demeanor. Just wait and see, my beau will definitely live a better life than those pig farmers, Myra Lee. I almost feel sorry for you. When your brother-in-law comes back, you can kneel and beg me. Maybe then I'll ask him to arrange some menial job for Fin Feng. Aunt Bai was furious. Only you would treat Bo Lee like a treasure. Fin Feng, that kid, is 1,000 times better than Bo Lee in every way. I stopped Aunt Bai. Don't stoop to her level. She's married to Bo Lee now. Just let her have her way. The middle-aged women around burst into laughter at my words. Bending over with mirth, Lily Lee didn't get what she wanted here and left cursing under her breath. After she left, it happened to be mealtime. Auntie Bai caught a whiff of the meaty aroma wafting from our house and swallowed hard. Myra, what delicious food are you cooking up again at your place? Everyone else looked at me with eager eyes. I couldn't help but boast with a hint of pride. Oh, it's nothing special. Just some golden cornmeal pot stickers Jiao Jiao made. Fin Feng butchered a black pig this morning, so we stewed the freshest ribs with yellow potatoes from the field and threw in some vermicelli noodles too. As everyone nearly drooled with envy, I put on a show of reluctant modesty. But my sister would never be interested in living this kind of life. On the way, I met Widow Zhong, who was looking for someone to help load things onto the ox cart. Widow Zhong saw me and shyly tucked the loose strands of hair behind her ears. I gave her a gentle smile, stepped forward, and took her hand. It's good to leave this place. You should have gone long ago. In my past life, after I married Bo Li, discovering that Bo Li had been forcing Widow Zhong to submit to him, when I found Widow Zhong, she thought I was there to cause her trouble. A lonely and helpless woman in this small, predatory village. The men eyed her with greed, while the women glared at her with jealousy. But she never expected that I would give her half of my family's food to help her. She also advised her to leave this place. Widow Zhong took it to heart. By the time I had settled in the city and started a wholesale clothing business, only to have local thugs block my door and demand money, I happened to run into the elegantly dressed Widow Zhong. Those people saw Widow Zhong and ran away with their tails between their legs, like mice spotting a cat, from her. I learned that she was actually a child who had been stolen, and her biological parents held considerable influence in the city. All these years, they had never given up searching for her. As a woman running a business in the city, if it weren't for Widow Zhong's help, I would have been devoured alive by the people around here long ago. Widow Zhong didn't let Bo Li off the hook for bullying her either. She got us a divorce certificate and then called the police, landing Bo Li in jail for a few years. During those years, Bo Li was severely bullied by the people arranged to deal with him. When he came out, he looked decades older. Widow Zhong finally vented her anger, letting him go and freeing herself as well, throw him into the countryside to fend for himself. But I never expected Bo Li to boast about how much money he had made in the city. He bragged my life right into my sister's hands, on the day of my rebirth. The first thing I did was find Widow Zhong. In gentle words, I asked her to do me a favor, to stir up some trouble at the wedding. I also casually mentioned that she should move to the city where her biological parents lived. Perhaps, with fate's push, she might meet her biological parents earlier. Widow Zhong's eyes welled up with tears. Thank you, sister. If it weren't for the trick you helped me come up with, I wouldn't have been able to get rid of that beast. As she spoke, she pulled out a piece of red cloth from her pocket. Unfolding it, she revealed a pair of golden bracelets lying inside. These golden bracelets aren't mine. I should return them to you. I quickly covered her hand with mine, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and only then let out a sigh of relief. Sister, don't you need money when you go to the city? Consider this gold bracelet as my gift to you. Widow Zhong looked at me in disbelief. How can this be? This gold bracelet is so valuable. If it weren't for your idea of faking a pregnancy to stir up trouble, this gold bracelet wouldn't have ended up in my hands. I waved my hand, indicating it didn't matter. In my previous life, I was so wealthy that I needed a small house just to store all the luxury items I bought, having long been accustomed to riches and splendor. This gold bracelet truly isn't as important to me as Widow Zhong's future. Widow Zhong carefully took back the bracelet, her tears seemingly endless as they streamed from the corners of her eyes, gazing at me with deep gratitude. Little sister, I don't even know how to repay you for this kindness. We can still meet in the future, and if anything happens, I will do everything in my power to help you. At night, I sat in the yard, feeling the gentle spring breeze, quietly waiting for an opportunity. Fin Feng had just finished showering, holding a towel in one hand to dry his damp hair. Seeing me walk over with a smile, his back immediately straightened. I took the towel from his hand, stood on tiptoe, and helped him dry his hair. The distance was close, our heated breaths entwined. Fin Feng could no longer hold back, pulling me tightly into his embrace and burying his face in the crook of my neck to take a deep breath. I was so mesmerized by his natural masculine charm that my legs went weak, gently tugging at his belt. I whispered in a voice softer than a mosquito's, Can I sleep with you tonight? Hearing this, Fin Feng's dark eyes darkened, and he swept me off my feet, carrying me into the house. Startled, I clung tightly to his neck, meeting Fin Feng's half-smiling gaze. I shyly buried my face against his firm chest. Late at night, the spring breeze sweeps across the river, turning it crimson, while the chirping of birds makes it hard for people to rest. The mountain wind carries the chants of witches, and as the morning sun sets, it bathes the hills in light. after the passion, I lay dazed in Fin Feng's arms, letting him clean up the mess with a warm towel. I lifted my slightly trembling hand and traced the contours of his face. Fin Feng turned his face and kissed my palm. Then, he held me as we drifted into a deep sleep, sweet dreams all night. A month later, my sister brought my mother to visit me at home. Feng Jiaojiao didn't want to let this mother and daughter into the house, but for my sake, she reluctantly opened the door and let them in. My mother pulled me to sit down and rudely ordered Feng Jiaojiao to fetch her some water. Feng Jiaojiao shot her a glare before turning and walking into the room. My mother curled her lip and said, "Look at your sister-in-law. Your brother-in-law made a fortune in the city and wanted to introduce her to his partner's brother. Seeing her attitude like that, I don't even feel like introducing her anymore." My face darkened, and I felt somewhat confused. From my mother's words, I learned that Bo Li had gone to the city with fellow villagers to do business and befriended an exceptionally capable big boss. The two of them teamed up for business and quickly earned profits 2 to 3 times the original investment. I was initially puzzled until my mother uttered the name of that big boss, Duan Zhenghe. My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, it was because of Bo Li that I got to know Duan Zhenghe. The two of them teamed up to engage in shady dealings, enjoyed a brief period of wealth, and were later rounded up by the brother of Widow Zhong. In this life, with my sister's encouragement, Bo Li befriended Duan Zhenghe ahead of time. I just don't know if Widow Zhong has reunited with her family, or whether Bo Li is destined for the same fate as before. I calmly took a sip of tea, not planning to tell them about this matter. Lily Lee looked at me smugly. "Myra, you must be green with envy inside. What a pity. I'm more fortunate than you." I could tell at a glance that Bo Li was someone who could make big money. "Unlike you who's marrying a butcher, your descendants will all become butchers too." I set down my teacup and lifted my eyes to look at my sister. "Now that your husband has made a fortune in the city, why hasn't he taken you away with him?" Lily Lee's smile froze on her face. I sneered randomly. "True. There are more opportunities to make money in the city, and plenty of romantic encounters too. Can you really hold on to your brother-in-law's heart?" I knew Lily Lee was beginning to waver. A fellow villager who used to do business with Bo Li has returned, drunk in the middle of the night, lying in his wife's arms. He naturally called out another woman's name. His wife instantly flew into a rage, convinced he had a lover outside. The two turned the entire household upside down with their quarrel. She would also occasionally cry to her good friend from the same village. On the night my husband first came back, I wanted to be intimate with him. But who would have thought he wasn't willing? I thought he was just too tired from the journey home. So I didn't think much of it. Little did I know he had already handed in his grain outside and had no energy left for home. Later, he started trying all sorts of new tricks in bed. Clearly learned from some shameless little temptress out there. Others would comfort her, saying, "Men are like that. They behave when they're poor, but as soon as they have money, they turn bad." Lily Lee sat beside them, her heart racing with every word she heard. Although she had no feelings for Bo Li, she couldn't stand the thought of another woman reaping the rewards. She was the one who had stood by Bo Li through the toughest times. She deserved to be adorned in gold and silver, showered with his endless affection. What had those other women ever done? How dare they sit back and enjoy the fruits of her labor? A few days later, as I passed by their doorstep, I saw my mother pressing her burial savings into my sister's hands. This was her last bit of money. "Don't skimp on yourself on the way to the city. Buy what you need. If you're comfortable, I'll be happy." Without hesitation, my sister stuffed the large bundle of money wrapped in red cloth into her pocket and replied indifferently, "All right, once I settle down in the city, I'll definitely bring you over." Upon hearing these words, her eyes instantly lit up. "I always knew that out of the 2 daughters I gave birth to, you're the most filial and sensible. Your sister is an ungrateful wretch. I asked her to use Fin Feng's money to help your beau start a business, but she refused. I really wasted my time giving birth to and raising her." The two of them chatted warmly for a while, completely unaware that I had been standing nearby for a long time. Luckily, they didn't notice me, so I could hear how blatantly my mother favored my sister. I turned and left silently, sneering inwardly. Since my sister is the most filial, then this unfilial daughter won't bother supporting her in old age. During this time, after indulging in sweet moments with Fin Feng at home, I also started working on my business. I convinced Fin Feng to leave the pigs at home under the care of a hired manager and took the family's money to start a business in the city. When my mother heard about this, she came to my doorstep just to scold me. Do you really think gold coins rain down in the city? Just because my son-in-law made a fortune there, every Tom, Dick, and Harry thinks they can get a piece of the pie. Take a good look at yourself. Do you even have what it takes? Don't come borrowing money from my son-in-law when you've run out of your own. Feng Jiaojiao was sitting in the yard doing her homework when she heard my mother's words. Without saying a word, she picked up a basin of muddy water and flung it open the door, drenching my mother, splattered head to toe with filthy water. My mother planted her hands on her hips and launched into an even filthier tirade, until I lifted my eyelids and glanced at Fin Feng, who silently picked up the sickle from our home. When he opened the door and stood before my mother let out a terrified scream and fled in panic. I had everything at home properly arranged. Fin Feng, being a businessman himself, recognized my talent for business and even smashed his piggy bank that he had been saving for over a decade. I teased him, "Aren't you afraid I'll lose all this money?" Fin Feng laughed along with me. "Money can always be earned again, if it makes you happy. No amount is too much to spend." As he spoke, he took my hand, his eyes filled with tender affection. "Besides, the girl I've set my heart on is bound to excel at everything she does." Jiao Jiao got goosebumps all over from Fin Feng's words. Never thought her blockhead of a brother could say something so spine-chilling. I gripped Fin Feng's hand, squeezing it with some force. A virtuous husband supports my lofty ambitions, and I repay him with mountains of gold. In this lifetime, with the support of Fin Feng's entire family fortune, I rented 2 of the best-located units in the city's largest wholesale market. Nowadays, city dwellers have long achieved freedom from basic needs, and under the influence of Hong Kong films and TV dramas, they've begun to put great effort into their appearance. 1 unit serves as a warehouse, while the other is used as a wholesale display hall. Fin Feng gave me 100,000 yuan in capital, with a few thousand set aside for rent. After renovating the storefront, I found a factory with decent craftsmanship. Drawing from my past life's memories, I submitted some clothing designs to the factory owner, Boss Wang, a seasoned veteran in the industry with a keen eye. Analyzed my designs and quickly noticed that a few of them matched the outfits worn by the female lead in a currently popular Hong Kong drama. He knew these clothes would sell like hotcakes once they hit the market. He immediately called in the factory's craftsmen to produce a few sample pieces based on the designs. "No model, I'll do it." When I stood before Fin Feng wearing the floral red dress, Fin Feng's face turned so red it was unbearable to look at. The boss even took out a camera, snapped several photos of me, and said he'd print them out to use for clothing promotions. I still have some money left, just in time for the graduation season. Some good-looking art students come to my store for part-time jobs. I have them wear the store's hottest outfits, acting as live mannequins. Clothing store owners who come to stock up immediately take a liking to the clothes on the girls, while other stall owners sat at their doorsteps complaining about the lack of business. My shop had already hired 3 packing workers, shipping out goods cartload after cartload. Within half a year, my clothes became famously best-selling throughout the entire city, earning me millions in cash profit. I wasn't content with just doing wholesale, I wanted to create my own brand. The money hadn't even warmed in my hands before I turned around and spent it. Rent a few storefronts in the busiest shopping malls. Feng Jiaojiao also came to the city to study. When she asked me what name to choose, after a brief thought, I blurted out 2 words, Rebirth. A year later, I arrived at the flagship store for an inspection and happened to witness a commotion. Upon closer look, I noticed a woman dressed head to toe in designer brands, arrogantly demanding that a waitress kneel to put on her shoes. A crowd had gathered around, eager to watch the spectacle, their gazes pressing down on the young employee until her back was bent. The woman pulled out a wad of cash from her bag and flung it harshly at the girl's face. "Isn't treating customers like God's part of your job? Will this money be enough to make you call me Mom?" The little girl's shoulders trembled, as if she was suppressing her sobs. The shop manager stepped forward to pick up the money, forcing a smile. "I'm sorry, miss, it was our oversight." Then, turning to the little girl, his face twisted into a vicious scowl. "What are you standing there for? Either work or get out." Our shop pays the highest wages in the entire city. If you don't want to work here, there are plenty of people eager to take your place." The girl's thin, paper-like frame trembled slightly. Perhaps unwilling to lose this job, she bit her lip, crouched down, and reached out to remove the woman's shoes. Just 1 centimeter away, a pale, slender hand grasped hers. The little girl was slightly taken aback. Following the hand upward to see a face that was both unfamiliar and familiar, exquisitely beautiful, I helped her up from the ground and wiped the tears from her cheeks. Upon recognizing who I was, the shop manager hurried over to explain the situation. "Boss, I'm really sorry. The new employee refuses to follow orders and won't do anything we ask." The girl burst into tears. "I came here to work, not to be a servant. Call me to buy you coffee during mealtime. And when you encounter difficult customers, you just push me to deal with them. I'm a human being too. Why do you have to trample my dignity underfoot?" The store manager sneered. "You're already out working. What use is dignity? If you cause losses to the store, you'll have to work for 10 years to pay it back." The young girl cried until she nearly fainted. The store manager said to me somewhat helplessly, "Young girls these days have such a temper. Don't worry. I'll definitely handle this matter properly." I raised my hand to glance at my wristwatch. "You have 10 minutes to print a resignation form, fill in your name, and hand it to me." The young girl's face turned pale. The store manager said sharply, "Hurry up, don't you know how valuable our general manager's time is?" Just as the little girl covered her face and was about to leave, I stopped her. Faced with the shop owner's aggressive words, I gave her a cold glare. "Our shop is for people to work, not to serve as slaves. I think your work attitude is very problematic. If you don't resign, I'll have HR initiate the termination process for you." The store manager stared at me in disbelief. "Boss, are you serious? I genuinely have the company's best interests at heart. Everyone is first and foremost themselves, then their professional role. No matter how good a store is, if it doesn't treat its employees like family, how can it expect to last long?" I handed the young girl a pack of tissues. "Other companies treat their employees like dogs, but such things are not allowed in my company. If employees are filled with resentment every day, how can they face customers with their best attitude? Regardless of one's position, mutual respect is the most important thing. No one has ever been inherently superior to anyone else." After I finished speaking, the tears in the young girl's eyes had now welled up in the store manager's eyes. The store manager begged me not to fire her. She even brought up her starving child at home to gain sympathy. Frowning, I asked her, "When your child graduates and starts working someday, would you want them to have a boss like you?" The store manager's lips trembled, and she fell silent. "No one wants their child to suffer such unfair treatment." "Myra Lee," an uncertain yet surprised voice rang out. I scrutinized the female customer who was giving the staff a hard time, only to realize the face with obvious cosmetic alterations before me was Lily Lee. Lily Lee raised her chin sharply enough to kill someone, unable to believe that I was the owner of Rebirth. This shop, Rebirth, offers trendy clothing styles, divided into high, medium, and low price ranges. Some celebrities in the fashion circle wear Rebirth's clothes as everyday outfits. Ordinary people or students also come to buy Rebirth's clothes. The quality matches the price, without being inflated, ensuring a t-shirt can last 4 or 5 years. I turned my gaze back to her chest, which was nearly bursting out of her clothes, wondering how much she had spent on her entire appearance. "No way, you're the boss of Rebirth," I smiled at her. "That's me." Lily Lee also caught the underlying meaning of the word rebirth, and there was a hint of murderous intent in her eyes as she looked at me. After all, she knew she had killed me. I will definitely take revenge on her. "You don't actually think that just because you opened a women's clothing store, you can compare to my husband, do you?" I shrugged. "I can't compare to your husband. I'm just an honest businessman. How could I compare to?" "Enough." Lily Lee immediately cut me off. "We'll catch up properly another day. I originally heard from a friend that this shop had beautiful clothes, but looking at them now, they're downright tacky." With those words, Lily Lee twisted her slender waist, -3 ribs, and walked away. I stood in place, watching Lily Lee's retreating figure. I wonder when Sister Zhong's brother plans to round up Bo Li and his gang in one fell swoop. Duan Zhanghe opened a compound in Southeast Asia, specifically targeting naive and ignorant college students. under the guise of offering generous benefits like free meals, accommodation, travel expenses, and high wages. They trap these students in the compound to scam money from elderly people back home. This kind of unscrupulous business that benefits oneself at the expense of others. Bowley only managed to reach middle management in his previous life, because he cooperated well and disclosed everything he knew. He was imprisoned for a few years. This time, I learned from Sister Jong's words, Lily Lee is even more ruthless than Bowley, having directly climbed to the position of second-in-command. If enough evidence is gathered, Lily Lee and Bowley could face the death penalty. Several more years passed, and Lily Lee often brought ladies from her circle to cause trouble in the shop. The once frail little girl had taken up boxing. Facing these troublemaking women, she flexed her muscles and flashed a murderous glare. Lily Lee and her group were scared off, fleeing in panic. After all, if the implant gets knocked out, it would cost a lot of money to fix. Back in 2004, Fin Fong sent his daughter to kindergarten and brought back exciting news. The undercover sent by Sister Jong's brother had gathered enough evidence, and the order came down to shut down the entire operation. Lily Lee was arrested while undergoing her 10th nose reconstruction surgery. When she was sentenced to death in court, her face was still wrapped in bandages that obscured her features. That evening, I took my family to the finest imperial-style private kitchen in the capital for a meal. In memory of Myra Lee, who was murdered, after my mother heard from our hometown that Lily Lee had been sentenced to death, she rushed to the city and caused a scene at the shop. Although Zhong Xiaoxiao was muscular, she couldn't bring herself to forcibly evict the frail old lady, left with no choice. She called me to come and drive the old woman away. By the time I arrived, I saw my mother, her hair turned white overnight, sitting on the ground slapping her thighs and wailing in grief. My daughter is so unfilial, her sister is in trouble, and she won't even help. She's become a big boss now, spending millions every day, yet she can't spare a dime to save her own sister's life. The onlookers mistakenly believed that Lily Lee had cancer, and that I was neglecting her, indulging in revelry every night without providing any money for her treatment. I used to love buying clothes from this brand, but now, I'll never buy from them again. Hurry. Record this and post it online. Rebirth is so popular and has made so much money, yet they won't even help their own family. I'm going to tell everyone online and get them to boycott Rebirth together. Zhong Xiaoxiao saw me approaching and grew somewhat worried that I might be mistakenly harmed by the crowd. I walked up to my mother. Just as she was about to slap me across the face, I grabbed her hand and raised my voice, demanding, "What has Lily Lee done? Don't tell me you don't know. She set up a compound overseas to run telecom scams. How do you expect me to save her?" At that moment, everyone present heard the truth of the matter. They were all stunned. Some victims of telecom fraud started cursing my mother in return, so she was involved in telecom fraud, got arrested and thrown in jail. That's the best news ever. All those involved in telecom fraud deserved to die. My mother was scammed out of over 100,000 yuan, with no money to repay the loans. She killed herself to avoid burdening us siblings. My mother only cares about her precious daughter, treating others' lives as worthless. So what? That just shows your sister has the skills. Why don't you get your face altered to look like your sister and go to prison in her place? I found it both absurd and laughable. She was sentenced to death. I'm a perfectly good person who donates to charity every year. Why should I trade my life for someone who's committed such atrocities? My mother was left speechless by my words and could only try to hit me, hoping to knock some sense into me, so she could go save her daughter. I left her standing there, no matter how much she tarnished the brand's reputation. After all, I had explained everything clearly. Even if this matter escalated, I wouldn't be the one getting blamed. Fin Fong stood at the mall entrance with a camera, waiting for me. Years had passed, and he had shed the youthful innocence. Now wearing gold-rimmed glasses that made him look both refined and restrained. I recorded that moment just now. Let's post it online. It's perfect for promoting the brand. I took the camera and carefully checked to see if it had captured my double chin. You did a good job taking the picture. Fin Fong leaned in close and whispered to me, "So, does my wife have any rewards for me?" I reached up, grabbed his collar, and we both tumbled into the car. "Come here, I'll give you a reward." 10 years later, our daughter was admitted to the best high school in town. Just as we were discussing where to celebrate, a call came from our hometown. The next day, we drove back to our hometown to arrange Mother's funeral. I heard that when she died, there wasn't a single person at home. Others knew about the wicked things Lily Lee had done, but no one bothered to intervene. It wasn't until she breathed her last in agony, her corpse rotting and sour, that someone finally called the police. I spent a considerable amount of money to decorate the old family house as a columbarium, even installing Wi-Fi and a television. The urn was placed directly facing the television, which played on loop the footage of my sister being sentenced to death. I leaned into Fin Fong's arms, my eyes red from crying. My mother loved my sister so much. Now, even in death, she can see every day what became of her. Fin Fong wiped the tears from the corner of my eye with his fingertip and praised me with genuine sincerity. I really didn't misjudge you, Myra. You truly have a kind heart. My daughter was making a fuss about leaving, saying her friends were waiting for her to treat them. I only have one daughter. Some advised me to give my daughter a younger sister or brother, saying that the pressure is too much for one person, and two can share the burden. But the money I've earned is enough for several generations to enjoy and squander, so where does the pressure for my daughter come from? One more person would only divide the love and wealth I have for my daughter. Having just one child is just right. As I left, I turned back to glance at the courtyard that had witnessed 18 years of my life. Under the Osmanthus tree, I seemed to see my elder sister as a child, placing a handful of mud into a leaf and handing it to me. Here, this is your meal. I held the mud and pretended to eat it with relish. Sister is so kind to me. It's really delicious. I blinked, and then I saw my mother and sister discussing again. The Fin Fong family is so wealthy. I must marry Fin Fong. As for Myra Lee, just let her marry Bo Lee. Anyway, she obeys your every word and won't disobey you. I close my eyes and exhale a deep, heavy breath. Years of living together day and night turned two blood-related individuals into bitter enemies who see red at the sight of each other. Should I resent the wasted time, or blame the fickleness of human hearts? But from now on, I will forget the pain in happiness. And my sister and mother received the punishment they deserved. In hell, there will be another judgment to determine their sins and punishments.